Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucs. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast. Happy Hump Day! Happy Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. It is a great day to be alive. Thank you so much for joining me on the program today. And shout out to number one today. That's you, Janet Best. First one on there, Buccaneers podcast. Let's go. Godwin likely back, as it seems like they're making moves towards a deal. We'll chat with Greg Auman from FOX Sports at 12:40 about that as well. Shout out to my guy, David Terry. Happy Hump Day, Jay. Thanks for letting me know about the FSU at USF baseball game. It was a good one. Go Noel. Shout out to Dolan and Thought as well. Yeah, last night, back and forth affair. I'll tell you what, it was one of those baseball games early on that dragged on a little bit on the call by myself. It's a lot to call a game by yourself, especially baseball, because there's so much dead time. So being able to fill in all the gaps there, certainly a challenge, but not complaining at all. A lot of fun last night there at the Red. Over 3,200 people there at the USF Baseball Stadium to watch USF take on Florida State. Great to see so many Tampa dignitaries there. Coach Miguel Menendez and Louis Martinez from Jesuit. Denard Span was on the ESPN Plus call with our guy Jim Lauk. Like, it was a really, really fun day. And to see that many people in attendance at the game there yesterday at Red McEwen Field, the second largest crowd ever to watch a baseball game here at USF. So I was just ecstatic to be able to be involved with that. And listen, 9 hits against the number 9 team in the country. And that's a team that really prides itself on his pitching. Coach Mitch Hannes, and if you missed the interview we had with him earlier this week, you can go check it out on my channel. He said that this game was going to expose them in a way of, all right, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to get better at. And I thought last night was a great example of that. Situational hitting is the key. I thought they threw the ball okay, defended pretty well. But you have 9 hits and you leave 10 runners on base. You leave a small village there on the base pass. You're not going to beat a team that's top 10 in the country. But I don't feel like they were overmatched, which I think is a positive sign for this team going forward. So keep an eye out on all things USF baseball. Again, the only place that you should be getting your tickets for all things USF, go usfbulls.com. Again, I said it the other day, there's third-party sites out there that are going to charge you $40, $50 for tickets to USF. That is not the way it goes. Go usfbulls.com. Go get the real prices there and get out there and support the Bulls, whether it's on the baseball field, the softball field, or on the basketball court. Lacrosse, unfortunately, they fell last night to number 6 team in the country, Florida Gators. But listen, they're there. They're competing. And that's got to make you feel good as a Bulls supporter, is knowing that you're going up against a couple of top 10 teams last night. And yeah, you took the L, but you were fighting, you were battling, you were going back and forth. So some really good stuff there. And then women's basketball just keeps on churning along. Dub after dub after dub. Great stuff there. All right, later on the program at 12:15 today, we're going to chat with Chris Adams-Wall, Rays Radio. What's the latest from spring training down there in Port Charlotte? Greg Auman, as I just alluded to, at 12:40 from Fox Sports. Chris Godwin, will he sign that franchise tag? No, he won't. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to be back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 1 o'clock for our weekly visit. Erik Erlendsson talks about the Lightning returning to the ice today for their first practice in a week, and also to preview the final for that big-time Four Nations championship game. And then last, but certainly not least, Jordan Zade from the Tampa Bay Sun. Have you seen her with these throw-ins? She does like a complete flip over to throw the ball in. It is one of the most viral things that you're going to see in soccer. Cannot wait to have Jordan on the program. It's Team Tampa Bay all day right here on the Recher podcast. And don't forget the Beckles and Recher podcast at 3:15 today right here on my YouTube channel. So you do not want to miss that. Speaking of Team Tampa Bay, this guy is as Team Tampa Bay as all of them. It's the one and only Greg Wolf, the host of all things Tampa Bay. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, dude? If I may, can I push my own podcast? The Bolts Block Party today dropped with the great Enrico Ciccone and Dan Cole, who were in town for the Lightning Alumni Hall of Fame weekend, where we had the induction of the great Rick Peckham and Brian Bradley. So we had some of the guys in town, and we got to catch up with the politician that is Enrico Ciccone, who had an interesting stance on fighting, which is just ironic that the podcast came out today on the cusp of the Four Nations Cup, Four Nations face-off, I should say, in his stance on things and where he thinks fighting belongs in the game or if it doesn't. So you should probably check that episode out today. Before we have our live show tonight, which Jay and I cannot tell you who our guest is, but I am beyond excited. As I know all of our guests are going to freak out when they see this individual walk in tonight. And that show sold out so fast that we have another live show that is now on sale for next Wednesday, 26, because it's like, holy crap, like this is becoming one of the more popular things that the Lightning are doing with the live shows. As you know, Jay, you're a part of it. You tee up me and Braden Coburn. Shout out to Kobe.
Yeah.
So I think we're getting to the point where we may have to start. I think we may outgrow the Cigar City
man.
At some point now, because it's becoming like such a big thing. So we love Highlight and everything they're doing, but we may have to increase the seating capacity because it's selling out so quickly. So I'm excited for tonight. That's for sure.
Yeah, we might have to open up to like outside too. And
we might. I mean, and we can do it right. We can do it out there. I mean, we have more seating out there. You can see and you can hear. We can add a TV screen. I'm sure that's probably in the works in the future. For sure.
I love it. Expansion. So yeah, tonight will be great. Next week will be great. They were like, "Are you available for next week?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, man. Let's do this.
Let's
keep
roll."
The block party rocking and rolling. But you got something pretty cool coming up there with GTE Financial, where Lightning fans can meet some of the players. Tell us about this.
Yeah, Greg. Buddy. So this Saturday, from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. is the grand opening of the GTE Financial Channel Side location, which is right there. It's a 140 South Meridian. It's right next to the pizza spot right there. And it's literally a stone's throw away from Amalie. Like literally it is that close to Amalie Arena. So their grand opening is taking place on Saturday, again, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. You're going to want to RSVP. So all you have to do is go to gtefinancial.org/channel side to RSVP. Why do you need an RSVP? Well, like Jay said, we've got some boys we're bringing with us. Not only am I bringing, this is newly added, by the way, I'm bringing my brother, Braden Coburn. He's coming. Yep, that's the new addition to the lineup who's going to be out there hanging out. Braden Coburn will be out there with me, as well as the great Nikki Paul and JJ Moser, who has been rehabbing fantastically. He said he wants to come out and enjoy a little sunshine and hang out with the fans. So Nick Paul, JJ Moser, Braden Coburn, yours truly, Saturday from 1 to 4. You're going to want to unlock those 3 offers too when you RSVP. GTE Financial has a player meet and greet. They're doing a skate party. How would you like Thunderbug to do a house party at your house? Dude, their GTE Financial is taking things next level with getting you closer to the action and closer to the Lightning organization than any other sponsor I think I've ever seen. And the things they're doing, they're fantastic. And they're so fan focused and oriented. I mean, how many times have we seen them on the plaza already this year, giving away free hats and all the interactive stuff that they do? They're truly a great partner of the Lightning. That's why they're the official credit union of the Lightning. And you're going to want to take advantage of this on Saturday. I'm going to be out there before USF basketball. I know we have a Tampa Bay Sun game. I wish I could be in 3 places at once. I cannot. So my buddy Stephen A., our host from the Tampa Bay Lightning, he'll be filling in for me at the Tampa Bay Sun on Saturday while I go do basketball. And like you said, the women are crushing it too, man. 8 in a row. I mean, they're playing lights out. So there's a lot of great things happening this weekend, but 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. GTE Financial on Saturday, channel side location. Come hang with your boys.
What time is the women's basketball game on Saturday?
Is it men's or women's? Let me double check, Jay. I want to make sure I'm giving you the right. It's women's game, 7 o'clock. It is Alumni Day as we take on Memphis. Salute to service, one of my favorite games, and that is a 7 p.m. tip-off on Saturday.
Nice. So I got the softball games at 1:30 and 8:30.
Okay. It's kind of like a Four Nations split there.
Pretty much for me. So I'm actually going to go. I'm going to probably do the first game, go get a haircut, come back, watch some of the women's game, and then go do the 8:30. It's gonna
Are
be
you going to do the doubleheader with me on Sunday? Because we've got men's basketball at noon, and then we've got Seattle, Yanni Gordon, the Kraken come in at 6 o'clock. So I'm doing doubleheader on
I'll
Sunday.
definitely be at the Lightning game. Maybe I'll do both. We'll see. Depends on what my obligations are here at the house.
Understood, man.
Yeah, Sunday, 6 p.m. I mean, it feels like forever, man, that we've been at Emily Arena for a Lightning game, but
3 weeks.
My goodness. I mean, it's not like we've missed hockey, though, because Four Nations has been unbelievable.
It's been great, and I can't wait to talk to our guest about it tonight just to get their perspective from, an outside looking in. But I think it's been fantastic. I saw Rich Eisen had posted that he was so amazed that the NHL got it right. He goes, when everybody else has been bitching and complaining about the NBA All-Star weekend and just how it's been, the NHL turns around and does the Four Nations face-off, and these guys, you can see the passion and how much it means to them. And I think that was the big point. The sticking point is this means something to them. They're not treating this like a exhibition. They're treating this as this is almost like the precursor to next year in the Olympics. Like, this is how serious it is. Every man for their country. And I'm sure I was freaking out watching Brandon Hagel get into a fight with Tkachuk because you're torn. You're obviously I want to cheer for Hagel. I hate that guy when he plays for the Florida Panthers, but he's playing for our country. So do you cheer for Tkachuk in that situation? You can't cheer, but you have to because it's Team USA. It was an absolute mind-boggling situation to see, but it was fabulous. It was awesome. And I'm so glad that they did this because it has set the tone for the rest of the franchises and leagues out there to see how it should be done.
Greg, when you get a chance, go on Twitter and see the video that I posted about somebody calling the games for the Four Nations meaningless. I just tweeted it out because I kind of lost my shit yesterday. Because Howie Rose, and this is a Hall of Fame broadcaster, Rangers, Mets, and he's talking about worried about injuries because in an otherwise meaningless game. Don't tell me those games are meaningless. Because, you can look at it for Braden Point, who's a two-time Stanley Cup champion, and be like, all right, well, yeah, you may think on the outside it's meaningless. But what about guys like Brady Tkachuk? He's never even made the playoffs, not once. He hasn't made the playoffs once. This is the biggest game in his entire life coming up on Thursday night. So how dare somebody on the outside say that they're meaningless games?
Because they're just hating, Jay. That's all it is. It's pure hate to get clicks, to get people to argue. You know how it is on the X sphere, as they say. But it's absolutely ridiculous to think that it doesn't mean anything to these players. It means everything to these players.
I love how you said X sphere because I've never heard that before. So I love when you say it. Greg Wolf, the one and only. I appreciate you, pal.
You got it, man.
I'll wrap things up here, and then as soon as I go here, I'm going right to the Dignitary Tea and Kava House. You got to join us for one of our Beckles and Recher episodes.
Let's go, dude.
And then we'll head over to the tap room tonight, man. I cannot wait. Highlights. Shout out to them. But yes, the big thing for Greg today, Saturday, 1 to 4 p.m., gtefinancial.org/channelside. He and Braden Comer are going to be over there. JJ Moser, Nick Paul, go over there. Just check it out first, gtefinancial.org/channelside, and reserve your spot because once this thing goes out there, once everybody knows it, it's already out. But once this thing really gets out there, after people share it from this, I mean, it is going to be wild.
It's going to be awesome. So can't wait to see everybody out there Saturday.
All right, pal. Appreciate your time. I'll see you tonight, buddy. You got it. Greg Wolf. You got to roll. You got to roll. You got to go. You got to go. Man, good stuff there. And if you missed it, all right, I'm going to play it for you right here. Okay? Because I don't quite understand how people can say something like this is meaningless. So here's what I had to say yesterday on the program about people that say the Four Nations is meaningless. Yeah, I don't agree, buddy. Sorry. But to say that games like this are meaningless, you tell the Canadian players that it's meaningless. You go tell Matthew and Brady Tkachuk that it's meaningless. Not a freaking chance, bro. Not a chance. This game means, I mean, what about the guys that'll never play in the Stanley Cup final? Right? For Matthew Tkachuk. Yeah, okay, he just won a cup last year, won games. What about his brother? His brother's never even made it to the playoffs. This is the biggest game that he's ever played in his entire life. You're telling me that's meaningless? Guys that have never made it to the Stanley Cup final, that may never make it to the Stanley Cup final. This may be the biggest game that they ever play in. What are you talking about meaningless? Just because we put so much of an onus of club over country here in the U.S., don't sit there and demean what this game means to the players that are involved. What a tone-deaf statement. Are you kidding me? Saturday night, I was at a party, and any other night, we'd be watching the NBA. The TV probably wouldn't even be on. But everybody was locked in to U.S. and Canada. Everybody was freaking out. Go check social media. People that have never typed in the word hockey on their Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, were all enthralled by what that game was all about. It wasn't just the fights. That set the tone, but it was 60 minutes of guys leaving it all out there and playing for the crest on the front of their jersey and not the name on the back. We should probably have a little bit more of that when it comes to sports, when it comes to life. People giving more for something bigger than themselves. So to sit here and use an example of a freak accident, of a celebration, to demean what these guys are doing on the ice, not meaningless. Not a chance. So Harry Rose said that because of the injury to Edwin Diaz back in the World Baseball Classic, that's why he had reservations and why, this tournament is meaningless. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't agree with that. And plus, you work for the Mets. Of course, you're going to look through it through that prism. But if your team was that good, you'd find another reliever to close games for you. That's not the reason why the Mets didn't go all the way. So please don't sit here and tell me that games like that in a tournament like this is meaningless. Speaking of meaningful talk, let's talk some Rays with our good buddy Chris Adams-Wall from Rays Radio. What's going on, brother? I know you're a busy man down there in Port Charlotte. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, Jay. Yeah, it's great to be on. And sorry I'm a little late. I was talking to Trey Morgan about all things New Orleans and about his first big league spring training. So everything's in full swing right now. Obviously, the young guys they're coming, and they're all here. Carson Williams is here, Chandler Simpson, Xavier Isaac, and just been enjoying some live batting practice today. And our first game is Friday, if you can believe that, at Steinbrenner Field against the Yankees.
Yeah, the future home for our Tampa Bay Rays. Give us an update on those young players, Chris. Like, what's the realistic possibility we see one or any of those guys this season for the Rays?
I think there's always a chance, right? And I think it's going to come down to how the Rays do. I think if they're out of it, quote unquote, by, I don't know, the middle of the year, or they feel like, you know what, this isn't really working, I could see those guys coming up. Maybe not all of them, but certainly some of them, just to see what we have. But all of those guys they are so tight knit, and give the Rays all the credit in the world. They are bringing them up seemingly together, like one step at a time at every level. And they show up early. From what I've heard, most of them were at Double-A Montgomery last year, but they were showing up early, leaving late, and that's just because they enjoy spending all this time together. So I'm excited. That's obviously the next era for the Tampa Bay Rays. I think you might see some of them, though. Like, look, Chandler Simpson had the highest batting average in pro baseball last year. He had the most stolen bases in all of baseball. Had 104 stolen bases. He's kind of a unique player, especially the way that the game is played these days, like contact first. It's kind of a slap hitter, but if he gets on a lot of these bunt singles or just regular singles to the outfield or in the infield, they turn into doubles and sometimes triples with how fast he is. So I'm certainly excited about it, and they are very excited. I've talked to all of them about being at their first big league camp.
Yeah, I can't wait to see those guys and to bring that dynamic offensively. What's the talk been like as far as the new home, right? It's going to be interesting for these guys out there used to playing in a climate-controlled atmosphere there at Tropicana Field. How big of a topic of conversation is the fact that they're going to be playing at Steinbrenner Field and outside, and they also have to be very kind of open to adjustments, whether it's, rain delays and stuff of that nature.
Yeah, it's kind of the elephant in the room, right? Like, so we're not playing at Tropicana Field this year. We actually just talked to Drew Rasmussen about it. a couple of minutes ago because he threw live batting practice today. Looked really good, felt really good. He got a swing and a miss from Junior Caminero today. A day after Junior took Shane Bosdeep over the fence in right center field during the live batting practice. But Drew, who is from Washington State, about as far away from Tampa as you can get, said he honestly doesn't think it's going to be that big a deal. We're playing outside here in Port Charlotte, and he seems to think that we can get acclimated to that. We, meaning the team, of course. Mm-hmm. And Drew said Drew's never been to Steinbrenner Field, and I think that's the case with a lot of these guys, unless you've been with the Rays over the last couple of spring trainings, or you played in the Florida State League at some time. Then you probably haven't been there, but I'm told that the renovations that have been done have made the place look really impressive. And I think the guys are honestly excited about it. It'll be a bit of a novelty. Obviously, an extremely short porch in right field. We talked to Brandon Lau about that the other day. He's a left-hand hitter. You got Jonathan Aranda, Josh Lowe, same dimensions as the Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. And we know how quickly home runs can get out of there in right field. So I don't think there's a huge concern. It's obviously going to be different. They're going to have to battle the elements, not just the heat, but the rain delays, as you said, Jay. But I think the Rays are certainly up for whatever challenges that might present.
I know one of the things that I look at with the short porch in right field, when the Rays had Longoria and BJ Upton, they also had power opposite field. So Junior Caminero is a guy that really has power to all fields. Keep an eye out for that, Chris Adams-Wall. I want to hear that in one of your pre-games this year. Junior Caminero has 5 opposite field home runs in the first month.
Look at you, just writing my material ahead of time. I appreciate it, Jay. Don't forget Yandy Diaz, though, too, right? He's got power going the other way also. And who knows, Danny Jansen, he's been pretty good in the past, too. So the Rays, they have so many. Christopher Morel, another guy, right, who can hopefully spray the ball around the field. They have matchup on matchup on matchup, like you name it, and they probably have the guy there for whatever situation might come about, and they just have a ton of depth on this roster. But yeah, I'm excited, right? Like this is something different. There's some novelty to the whole thing. Obviously, we prefer to be at Tropicana Field in downtown St. Petersburg, but we've never had professional baseball in Tampa, or at least Major League Baseball, and the Rays have only played a few, from what I understand, home games outside over any point in their history. So it's going to be interesting, that's for sure.
The Rays certainly need to get on a taco sponsorship, because if they have a bunch of right-handed hitters going Oppo Taco, that would be a great thing right there. I want to ask you about, because it looks like we're looking at a situation here where, okay, we know Jansen. We kind of have a semblance of what the starting lineup is going to be. You got Junior, before Kim comes back, probably a Taylor Walls option, maybe Caballero, second base, Lau, Diaz, Josh Lowe. Everybody's hoping for a big bounce back year. Johnny DeLuca is going to get an opportunity to show he can be an everyday center fielder. I look at left field, Chris. Tell me about left field. Tell me the options there, because I know Christopher Morel came across in the deal with Isaac Paredes, but outside of the early power, there's some swing and miss to his game, but I know that that's something in the offseason he was very mindful of. Like, I got to put the ball in play more. I got to be able to accentuate my strengths here. But what are they going to do in left field? Is it going to be more of a platoon thing? Are they going to give it to him? Like, where do you see guys like him, Caballero, working into this entire mix?
Yeah, well, they have a bevy of options, as you just kind of laid out there. You do have Christopher Morel, an infielder who has played some outfield, or an outfielder who has played some infield. You mentioned Jose Caballero. He is working and going to be doing some work in the outfield as well this year, or this spring training, I should say. You have Richie Palacios out there, who's also an infielder, left-handed bat. So I think we're going to see how it goes. And obviously, Jose Caballero, right? Let's not forget, that guy led the American League in stolen bases last season, and now
hard to keep him off the field, man.
That really right, is. Exactly. And he's a grinder. I think he had the second most plate appearances last year, after Yandy Diaz, who played in the second most games for any Rays. So we know that the durability is there. Cabby's really fast, right? So maybe if you get him working on these reads, he could turn into a pretty good defensive left fielder. I know he's up for the challenge. When he came here last year, I interviewed him, and he said, "I'm willing to do whatever I can for this team, whether that's coming on as a pinch runner or playing shortstop, playing left field. I think he'll be up for it." So right now, I think it's a bit of a let's wait and see what's going to happen out there in left field. But the names that I mentioned already, those are some pretty good candidates. But that one, like you said, Jay, it's kind of like well, that's the one that's kind of still up for grabs. But I think depending on the matchups, you might see Morel in there against left-handed pitching, and then maybe Cabby in there, and then maybe Richie out there against right-handed pitching.
A name, excuse me, that is not being mentioned by enough people is Eloy Jimenez. And this is a guy, 6'4". He dropped 20 to 30 pounds in the offseason. What have you seen from him so far? I don't know if, maybe he'll be an option in the outfield, but I think he can be a real dangerous hitter. We're talking so much about Junior Caminero, but I think Eloy Jimenez is one of those guys where if he can really get back to that scary right-handed hitter that we saw for Chicago, like he can accidentally hit 25 home runs. Like he is that strong. What have you seen from him? How does he fit into the entire equation?
I don't think it'll be accidentally either. He has come into Rays camp 25 to 30 pounds lighter than he was at the end of last season. And he was really honest about his time with the White Sox and the Orioles at the end of last season. He said, the Orioles were successful before I got there, so I wasn't going to be able to contribute as much as I would have liked. He only hit 6 home runs last season, but he has shed that weight. He's been doing a ton of running. His English, by the way, is superb, and he credits a lot of his minor league teammates during his time with the Cubs and the White Sox for that. But he looks good. He probably looks the sharpest that he has physically in a number of years. Remember, his first year with the White Sox was 2019, and we're sitting in 2025 now. He's still only 28 years old. Like he broke in early, had a very good season for them in 19, and then in 2020, in the COVID year, he won a Silver Slugger award. He still says that's probably the greatest accomplishment of his career. But we interviewed him the first day that we saw him, and he said, "You're going to see. I'm going to do some things this year, so get ready." And he's another option in left field. They're going to try him out there. I'm also told that he might try some reps at first base, so keep an eye on that. But you're right, Jay. I think if this is anywhere close to the Eloy Jimenez that we had in 2019 and 2020, one of the top prospects in all of baseball, then the Rays are just going to have another big piece in that offense that's hopefully going to be a lot better here in 2025.
31 home runs there in 2019, fourth in the Rookie of the Year voting. I'm super excited to see if he can recapture some of that magic for the Rays. Let's get to the bread and butter here, my friend, the pitching. I mean, I look at these guys and talk to Ryan Pepiot a lot in the offseason, and to see Shane McClanahan take his rightful spots there at the top of the rotation, already named the opening day starter. I feel like one thing that the Rays, and obviously we're knocking on wood, we're keeping our fingers crossed that these guys can stay healthy. The one thing that this team needs is they need to make sure that everybody is kind of slotted in that right spot. Go every 5th day, make sure that they get some kind of semblance of routine, because we haven't gotten that in the last couple of years. It was always a guy going down, a guy going up. I think one thing that would really help this team, and I hope you agree, is that coming out of the gates, let's just get a couple of weeks, right? Let's get a month and a half of just seeing the same guys, right? And I think that would bode well of just getting off, not just the starting rotation, but the season for this entire team off on the right foot.
I think so. And I think they just want to see everybody healthy, right? Like it's been a while where we've gone for a whole season and not had some injuries. I love that Shane McClanahan is going to be starting opening day. He seems loose. He's excited to be back, because think about it. I mean, Tommy John surgery, you essentially aren't pitching for over a year plus. And if you're a competitive guy, which most of these guys are, then you're going to get that itch and it's going to drive you crazy. So it's good to have him back. Pepio, obviously. Hopefully he will take another step. Taj Bradley, same thing. Drew Rasmussen back in the rotation also this year. They have 6 starting pitchers, though, as you know, including Zach Littell also in there. I wouldn't be surprised if they went to a 6-man rotation early on. And I think it seems to make sense with the way the schedule lines up. You got 3 against the Rockies, 3 against the Pittsburgh Pirates. I don't know if they'll do it personally, but I was talking with Rays pitching coach Kyle Snyder the other day, and he said, you can never take anything off the table with this group. So maybe they will go to a 6-man rotation, but they have a ton of great arms. The big fear, of course, is that someone is going to get injured. Hopefully that's not the case early on. I think if you have everybody healthy, this is probably one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. And don't forget about Shane Baz, too, who is entering his, what should be, first full season with the Rays. It's hard for me to think back on the fact that, oh, yeah, he started a division series game all the way back in 2021, and now here he is. So he's still a young guy too. That bullpen looks really good also, which we didn't know what it was going to look like last season after all the trades, losing Jason Adam and Pete Fairbanks going down. By the way, Pete should be healthy at the start of the season too. I'm really excited. They have a lot of arms in the minors also that they can bring up, and they're probably going to be a lot of rain delays. Hopefully not. Hopefully we'll get through an entire season where we don't have to say that word. But a lot of big arms like Hunter Biggie, right? Garrett Clevenger will be back. We saw Mason Montgomery throw live batting practice today, and that was coming in, I want to say high 90s, and we saw what he did last year when he came up. Rays have a ton of options, Jay, and the pitching staff, we know it starts with them. And I think if you can get this offense back to league average even, then the Rays are going to be in really good shape. I think their biggest issue is going to be the other teams in the American League East, because if you look at those projected lineups and rotations, those 4 teams have gotten a little bit better too.
Who do you think, who scares you the most in the AL East? Who's that team that you look at and go, if I had a bet, that'd be the team that would finish the highest out of, and we'll leave. I don't think you'll say Blue Jays. Well, let's just say with Orioles, Yankees, Red Sox. No disrespect to our Toronto brethren, but out of those 3 teams, who do you think is going to finish the highest out of those 3?
It is funny that you say that. I was going to say Toronto.
Really?
Now, it's tempting to say New York because they were in the World Series last year and they've retooled with MVP on MVP on MVP, right? Like, think about how many combined most valuable player awards are on that team now that Cody Bellinger is there, Paul Goldschmidt, Aaron Judge, of course, Giancarlo Stanton. The list goes on. But I see them taking more of a step back. They're going to be competitive. We know that. They just have too much talent on that roster. But they don't have Juan Soto anymore. Baltimore, I don't know. We know that they're really talented. We know that they have our guy, Zach Eflin, up there now. But they haven't won a playoffs game yet with that group. So I could see them taking a step back. The Red Sox, they haven't really been in the playoffs, I don't think, since 2021, though they did just sign Alex Bregman, although it looks like they're having some issues there with whether Rafael Devers is going to be allowed to play third base or if he's going to be more of a designated hitter. I like Toronto, how they signed Anthony Santander. He had a mega season last year. You put him in the thick of that lineup. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., we don't really know what's going on there, but he's probably going to be a free agent, it sounds like, at the end of this season, so he will have something to prove. Contract year, exactly. Bo Bichette will be back and healthy. They signed Max Scherzer also, and I know he's getting up there, but he's still Max Scherzer, plus the other arms there, like Jose Barrios, Kevin Gausman. I do think the Blue Jays are good. They might be the team to watch in the American League East outside of the Rays, but all 5 of those teams that I named are really, really good. They're tough. So this, to me, is the best division in baseball, at least where we stand right now on February 19th or whatever the date is.
What are you looking at for the kind of the rest of the week? Well, actually tomorrow now before the opener on Friday.
Probably some more live batting practices. I would like to see Erik Erlendsson throw live BP. I have not seen him yet. The Rays got him in that deal for Jose Siri from the New York Mets. The Rays have all of these ex-Mets pitchers all of a sudden, like Mike Vassell is here, Nathan Lavender is here also, although he just went on the injured list. But there are a bunch of Mets guys all of a sudden, which is kind of interesting. Honestly, I'm excited for the game on Friday. I'm planning on going. And kind of fitting that we open up at Steinbrenner Field, and then the second to last game of the season, which will be broadcasted live by Andy Freed and Neil Solondz. That's going to be at Steinbrenner Field also. I think that's on March 24th, I want to say, up there in Tampa. So I'm excited to get the games going. I think there really aren't that many spots up for grabs. The way that you look at the roster right now, maybe a couple in the bullpen, and then we'll see what happens with left field. But I'm just excited for the season to get going. We know how much the Rays struggled with runners in scoring position last season, and to get the runner in from third. They've been doing a ton of drills this week. Little games during live batting practice where you're like, all right, guy on third, like let's zone in here and let's make sure that we get him in somehow, be it with a sac fly or a ground ball to the opposite side. So I think this group is definitely determined. They are pretty unhappy that they missed out on the playoffs last season. They've got a few more hits. Who knows? They might have been that sixth wild card team.
Right.
I think you can talk yourself into a bunch of these guys taking another step forward, and hopefully the Rays will be back in the postseason come 2025. But yeah, I just can't wait for the games to get going, Jay. It's a long-winded answer that I can give you right there.
I'm with you, brother. I cannot wait, and I can't wait to hear you pre- and post-game there on the Rays Radio Network on WDAE with our good pals over there, Andy Freed, Neil Solondz, the entire crew, Chris Miller, Beck, everybody over there, man. We love you guys so much, and can't wait to hear you guys. And it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time before it starts. And then once it starts, it don't stop, man, because baseball is the heartbeat of America, and it's day in, day out. You can win 10-0, lose 10-0. It don't matter. You got to get up the very next day, and your starting pitcher has to toe the slab. So cannot wait for that. Chris Adamswall, follow him on Twitter /X at his name, just like me. Jay Recher, Chris Adamswall. We're smart. We signed up early, so nobody can steal our stuff. Chris, you're the best, man. Enjoy it down there in Port Charlotte, and we'll talk to you again soon. Appreciate you.
All right, thanks, Jay. Go Chelsea.
Oh, God, get him out of here, this guy. See you, pal. Chelsea fan, this guy. Listen, that's what I love. The soccer fans that come out of the woodworks. It's great. I love it. I love it. You just never know who people are supporters of, but I wear my my Man U flag. It's tough, man. When I was a kid, I was like, oh, man, you're rooting for all the great teams. Now all my teams stink. Especially Manchester United. You guys are killing me. You're killing me. And then see, we have Thor here talking about Arsenal. People pop in with Liverpool. People pop in with a lot of different things. Not many United fans. When I was a kid, everybody was a United fan. So it's kind of wild that now, like, there's people from a team, which is good. I think it's good. I don't want it's not great when everybody's a fan of the same team. But you know how it was in the late 90s. Everybody was the same exact fan. Everybody was a Yankee fan and a Cowboys fan and a Bulls fan and a Manchester United fan. That's what it was. Everybody was the same. So it was a little different. Dave Terry with the Redbirds, father football game, and Chris has been a great addition and a tough spot with everything happening around Dave. You got that right, buddy. The job that those guys have done after we lost the great Dave Wills, you just got to tip your hat, man. You do, because when something like that happens so unexpectedly, people have to fill in. I know I filled in on as well. I filled in on the Rays Radio Network. My guy Zach Blobner did. We had a bunch of different people that filled in on the pre and post game before Chris Adamswall was brought in. I'm glad they did. They hired from within. They brought him up from Montgomery, and yeah, still tough, man. When you lose guys like Dave Wills and you lose guys like Amir Abdur-Rahim, you lose guys like this guy that's right here next to me all the time, the big dog, Steve Dumig. You always remember in this profession, when you're broadcasting, the people that you met along the way, the people that influenced who you are today. And I learned so much from the big dog, learned so much from Dave Wills. Getting a chance to meet Amir Abdur-Rahim really adjusted my perspective on life. But when I first got an opportunity to do some broadcasting for USF, what I decided to do is I decided to reach out to the best in the Bay. And I remember going to dinner before a Rays game with Dave Wills and Andy Freed and Neil Solondz and everybody, and just bending their ear, man, and picking their brain What do you got to do to be successful? What do you got to do to, make it work as a broadcaster? And they gave me such great advice. Same thing with Dave Mishkin for the Tampa Bay Lightning, Rich Hollenberg. I pretty much reached out to everybody. And a lot of people gave me just little tidbits. Hey, make sure you focus on this. Make sure you do this. Pronunciation, punctuation. Make sure you're there on time. Make sure you get somebody's name right. Especially when you're doing certain sports where you have people from different backgrounds. You want to make sure that you're saying their name right. You never know who's tuning in. Somebody's mom or somebody's aunt or somebody like that. Like, you just don't know. So that punctuation is key, and just taking that time to prepare. That's what Dave Mishkin told me. Preparation, punctuation. No, preparation and pronunciation. There you go. Easy for me to say. Preparation and pronunciation. And we're going to get Dave Mishkin on here very soon, right here on the Jay Recher podcast. I want to bend his ear on a little bit of everything. I'm bending everybody's ear today. That seems to be my thing. But I'm excited for tomorrow night, and I'm going to reach out to Mitch because I know he's got the Lightning Power Hour, Lightning Lunch, Power Lunch that they do all the time. But I want to get him on the program to see what he has to say about the Four Nations and also about the Lightning, because they're back in action on Sunday right there at Amalie Arena against the Seattle Kraken, and Yanni Gourde comes to town. It's going to be a full weekend when it comes to sports. I know baseball's on the road. They're going to be taking on Georgia Southern. But you look at softball, they're in action this weekend. Again, go to usfbulls.com. Basketball on Saturday and Sunday with the women and the men, and then the Lightning back in action in Amalie. I said this to Greg Wolf before. Even though it hasn't been a game in a while, there hasn't been a game in a while when it comes to our Tampa Bay Lightning. I feel like we've missed hockey. I feel like we've whetted our appetite with the Four Nations. And it's been an unbelievable time that we've had cheering on our teams, cheering on our countries, which is kind of weird to be able to cheer against John Cooper and the crew. But sorry, Coop. We're going Team USA, red, white, and blue over here all day. Shout out to my guy, Ray Kennedy, Tampa Bay Ray, AFC Richmond. What a great show. Did everybody see Ted Lasso? What a phenomenal show. So many different tidbits about life. That's what I think some of the best things about sports is when you can make those analogies to life. And we mentioned this on the program yesterday, whether it's about like failure with baseball, you have to learn how to deal with failure. Whether it's something like soccer, where you have to be so incredibly patient. You have to focus more on the results, more on the process than the results. I love that. And I cannot wait for, it looks like Ted Lasso is coming back for another season. I hope it's not one of those situations where they come back and you walk away going, nah, they probably should have ended it there. But if we can get some AFC Richmond action, I know Jamie Tartt's probably not going to come back, so that kind of dampens it a little bit. But from football to football, we'll bring him in. The one and only Greg Auman from Fox Sports. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Doing well, Jay. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Yes, sir. Give me some good news. It's so I can't tell you how many times. Like, I was going to count how many times that you answered the question about Chris Godwin being franchise tagged. Because if I had a nickel for every time, I think I may be a millionaire. And I think I might buy Fox Sports myself. So sorry, Rupert. Move on over. But let's just start right now. No chance he's going to get tagged for a third time because quarterback money. And I don't know if the Bucs necessarily want to pay him, what, $40 million?
Yeah, right. It makes, I mean, they've done it twice before. If it were just the regular receiver franchise tag, hey, maybe they do it. But yeah, it hasn't ever happened before. But if a guy gets tagged a third time, it goes to the highest position, which of course is quarterback. So yeah, 1 year, $41 million. Chris Godwin's a good receiver. I'm not sure he's a $41 million receiver. So that's not going to happen.
But the more and more we're getting it, and now we're hearing this news, and you were the first really person to talk about it yesterday, is the fact that the Bucs and Chris Godwin are pushing this date back. This has got to be a positive sign for a reconciliation to bring number 14 back here in Tampa Bay, right?
Yeah, and that's not that surprising. I mean, I've kind of thought about the Godwin negotiations a lot like the Mike Evans negotiations, maybe even friendlier, if you will. Again, this is all Chris Godwin has known. Drafted in Tampa, played in Tampa, won a Super Bowl here, got married here, baby here. Lots of reasons he wants to stay. Coming off a major injury, the continuity of being in the same place, those all mean a lot to him. So it's tough for NFL teams to pay two receivers $20 million or more each. But I think the Bucs feel like Godwin adds a lot to this offense. Not in terms of, you think about who he was first, 8 games of 2024. Was a top 5 receiver. Period. Was their best offensive player really the first 2 months of the season. So it's just a matter of how confident they can get back to that and be the same Chris. That's a big injury to come back from. He's certainly shown he can come back from major injuries before. But no, I think everything's kind of going on course for them to work out a deal that keeps him here. Right now, probably just another 2 or 3 years. But I think he's like Mike Evans. I think he wants to play his whole career here.
Is there any concern, do you think, from the Buccaneers that a new play caller, right? And listen, because we've seen the different, I think it's a fair question. Even if you have a similar background, even if you are promoting from within, bringing Grizzard up. I mean, you saw the difference with Chris in the Dave Canales offense and the Liam Cohen offense. Any hesitation, you think, at all with Chris being able to assimilate himself and be as productive as he was in 24, in 25? Or is there more of a comfort level knowing that there's probably going to be less of a deviation or probably more of a similarity to Liam Cohen than what we saw 2 years ago with Dave Canales?
Yeah, I think if this were kind of like a year ago, if it were someone brand new coming in from outside that Chris Godwin doesn't know, there might be more of a hesitation there. I think the fact that they've chosen Josh Grizzard, that continuity was a priority, having somebody he's worked with and knows kind of how he operates. This offense will be different for sure. There's different play caller, different guy in charge. But I think fundamentally, I think the goal would be to have things as close to the success they had this past year. And obviously, Godwin was a big part of that when he was here and healthy. So, no, I think that's a potential hurdle. And if it were someone like completely outside, didn't know how he would operate, didn't know how he would value Chris Godwin. I mean, I think Josh was in all those meetings with Cohen, with the players. So I think they know each other. And without knowing exactly how that offense will work, I think they probably have a good idea of it.
Just saw a recent mock draft that had McMillan, the big-time wide receiver from Arizona, going to the Bucs there in the first round. What is your thought process on that? Because I look at it, if you're bringing Chris Godwin back, I thought Jalen McMillan himself took some big strides. And I just look at the other holes, and I know some people will say, well, the argument is you want the fourth best pass rusher or the first best wide receiver. Well, if they just needed a pass rusher, I understand that. They need interior linebackers. They need corners. The defensive tackle I don't think would hurt as well. What do you think the chances are, especially if Chris Godwin comes back, that the Bucs draft for a wide receiver in the first round?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think McMillan's going to be there at 19. I think you see a lot of mocks where he goes at 6, where he goes at 8, where he goes at 10. So first and foremost, I don't think he'll be there to be part of the decision at 19. I would be really surprised if there isn't a strong defensive lean to the top of this Bucs draft. They can do things in free agency to fill holes, absolutely. But they have a couple positions that you need to keep young. You need to keep infusing with high-level talent. Edge, inside linebacker, corner. Those are all positions that the really good ones you don't get in free agency because they don't get put on the open market. So I just think there's a lot of mocks right now where, like, if the Bucs stay at 19, like, there's 4 edges off the board where you're not going to get premier. It's kind of like when the Bucs wanted to tackle and they did really well and they got the 4th tackle in 20 and it just happened to be Tristan Wirfs and was all world. That doesn't always happen that way. So you don't want to reach for a position where the talent's already kind of been stripped bare. You can find talent. They took a second-round edge last year. They could very well have one of the first, if not the first, inside linebacker if you want to take an inside linebacker at 19. But I would be surprised in terms of whether they take another receiver. I think Tab McMillan can be a really great player in the NFL. Gives you size. If you're trying to think about life after Mike Evans someday, he's somebody that would benefit from whatever it is, 2 years, 3 years with Mike Evans to eventually take over for him. Okay. But I think they're probably drafting more with 2025 in mind. And I think in doing that, I think your defensive front is probably where it starts. Maybe corner, if the right corner was there, but I would be surprised if it's not a linebacker or an edge at 19.
Yeah, I'm with you. A lot of people are wondering if the Buccaneers will be in on any of these guys via trade. A Hendrickson, a Garrett, a Max Crosby, somebody like that. Do you think that's the route they go? Like, I feel like they're going to address it in one of 4 ways. 1, through the draft. 2, they're going to trade for a big piece. 3, they'll sign like a veteran guy, Khalil Mack, on the downside of his career. Or 4, they'll go the Shaq Barrett route, and maybe they'll go to like a Joseph Osai. I had a guy on from Cincinnati yesterday, and he goes, people are talking about Trey Hendrickson, but the guy that a lot of people aren't talking about that played pretty well when Sam Hubbard went down was Joseph Osai, where you look at him and you go, okay, that could be the next Shaq Barrett, where now that he's getting opportunities, he's going to go from a 6 to 8 sack guy to a 15 sack guy. So out of those 4 doors, which one do you think is the most likely that the Bucs kind of open to try to address that pass rushing situation?
Yeah, I don't know that it's the swing for the fences grand slam, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby. It's going to cost you more than a number one. You're going to pay the guy $35 million a year by the time he gets a new deal. That would be kind of restrictive. I think if they thought they were like one player away, you might do that. I don't know that they are. I think they're still very much, we like a young core. We want to build around a young core. I think that's the message they're going with. As opposed to like if this were like 22 and Brady, maybe they would think they're one pass rusher away. So I think, and there's tiers within that. It doesn't have to be Garrett or Crosby. It doesn't have to be a top 5 edge. Trey Hendrickson, again, will want a new deal, will cost less. There's other guys that are available in trade. In free agency, there's guys. I mean, again, Josh Sweat won't cost you a draft pick, will still probably cost you $20 million a year to get an edge rusher. So they have to decide their priorities in terms of, if you get a big dollar pass rusher, a top tier splash signing this year, it makes it tougher to make sure you get Gedeke and McMillan and Cade Otton, the guys that are free agents a year from now, because they don't really have much this year besides Chris Godwin, Levante David to some extent, whether he retires or returns. But there's not a young core that could be leaving. A year from now, they will. A year from now, they'll have 3 or 4 guys that'll really be priority signings. And I think they want to make sure they're not signing somebody now at the expense of then. Absolutely. Edge is a need. I do think they can find value. Again, Joseph Ossai, a guy that, again, I think I had mocked to the Bucs 4 years ago as a potential match, and probably would have been a better pick than what they did. But I think so he's more of a reasonable type. He's not going to be a break the bank type. He's going to be a guy you could actually get value in and still have a guy that upgrades your number 2 rusher opposite Diaby, if you will. So that's probably a more reasonable upside. I think it'll be a combination of things. I think they'll be able to add some, like linebacker. Okay, like they probably need to add 2 starting linebackers, whether Levante's back or not, just to be ready for when he is done. So one of those could be a night. There's some really good veteran free agents that are late 20s, 100 tackle a year, veteran pass coverage types. And linebacker, inside linebacker isn't really a break the bank position. So you can get a good one. I mean, Zach Bond, first team All-Pro, Super Bowl champ, might be a $10 million a year linebacker. It's kind of the running back of the defense in that it doesn't have the high dollar, crazy expensive contracts that you have with corners and with edges, but it happens to be what they need. So that's one of those where they could spend a lot by linebacker standards and it wouldn't be a crazy amount of money.
Greg, it looks like they have 4/5 of the offensive line pretty much set going into next year. Ben Bredeson, I don't know. I know Tristan Wirth loves them. Their continuity on the offensive line is exemplary. I look at a guy like Elijah Klein. They drafted him, late draft pick. They really liked him in the preseason and training camp. They moved him around. They seemed like they really trusted him, even playing, different spots and a lot of high. I remember they offered him up like to talk on the radio, and I was just like, yeah, it was really weird to, he didn't look like he was going to play a ton, but it seemed like they had their eye on like this kid. Maybe next year could be the piece. Is he an option at the guard spot, or where else do you think they addressed it in the draft? Do they go back into free agency? Do they bring Bredeson back?
Yeah, that's, again, all in play. You'll see mock drafts now that have the Bucs going guard at 19. Whether it's Gray Zabel, the small school kid, there's a couple guards that would fit well at 19 there. I'd be surprised if they do that. They have a young line already. But if they like somebody, it's fine. I mean, Ben Bredeson was a great deal for them to get an above average starting guard for $3 million like they got. It was great. He probably won't cost that this time around. He'll probably cost more than that. And they have to decide if the continuity is worth paying him more, how much he values staying versus starting with a third team in 3 years. So Elijah Klein, he's a guy that, again, barely played at all. They stuck with their 5 when they were healthy at all times. But I think they liked him. I think they feel like he has this offseason to get stronger and bigger. And the foundation is there. So, no, it would be easy for them to – you think about this time last year. Okay, Bredeson wasn't even – Bredeson came in with $3 million, but, Sua Opeta was another guy they thought might be it. We thought Hainsey might be a guard. I don't think people knew who the left guard was this time last year. So the idea could be Klein. It could be a third-round pick. There's a couple different options there. If they feel like Bredeson has priced himself out and they don't want to pay double what they paid him last year or something, it would make sense they would kind of start anew and know they have another option in-house with Klein as a young guy they can build around. They've had other guys that either didn't play or didn't have great rookie years and then really took a step forward in the second year. Cody Mauch did that. Luke Genneke did that. I'm not putting him in the same group as those two, but I think that's their model, is give them a year to get their bearings, get them stronger, get them ready, and then see what they can do in year 2. And that's kind of where things stand there. I mean, Elijah Klein's a 6th-round pick. So, I mean, if that works out to be a starter, that's a great draft pick. They probably wouldn't put all their eggs in that basket, but I think they could definitely not overspend and put a vet against him and have a good battle in training camp between new veteran and Elijah Klein.
Bucs love themselves a good training camp battle, just not the quarterback position because they're lying to us. All right, before I let you go, let me ask you about the running back position. Bucky's going to be the guy going forward, but where does this leave Rachaad White? I saw him doing some stuff recently, and it's just like there are some people that are saying, well, we should move him. We should trade him. But Bucky, 3 injuries last year, 3 different parts of his body. I don't know if I'd be so quick to get rid of Rachaad White. I know you still have Sean Tucker, but how do you think that whole position group shakes out?
Yeah, I think they bring everybody back. I mean, Chase Edmonds is a free agent, so that they might have a different vet in the room. They might have a different number 4. But in terms of those 3 being the 3 that get the lion's share of the carries, that really should be the case again. The way took in terms of things they improved in last year, run game probably top of the list. To go from dead last in the league to top 5, really had a balanced offense for the first time. To know that they'll start with those pieces basically in place is really encouraging, and probably a source of confidence for Josh Grizzard in terms of things that he knows they do well.
Right.
But no, I think it'll be a stronger lead on Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving, was a 1,000-yard back and didn't really play more than about 60% of the snaps because he had such a late start. So I think you start with him as a default 20 carry, 2/3 of the workload as opposed to half the workload. And then Rachaad, obviously, you have there, I think probably someone they trust in terms of pass protection, in terms of catching the ball out of the backfield. If he just becomes a 3rd down back and becomes a 60 catch, 500-yard rushing, 8 touchdown back, that's a great role to keep the mileage low for Bucky and make sure you're not putting too much of a burden on a young back.
That might work out in their benefit, right, Greg? Because
absolutely.
Going in, right, when you were looking at the strengths of both those guys last year, you're like, well, I know Rachaad was the incumbent. He was the RB1. But when you look at their strengths, ironically enough, that's Rashaad's bag. He is a guy that loves to catch the ball in the backfield and pass block. So in a this worked itself out the way that it probably needed to for the Bucs to be able to accentuate both these guys' strengths.
Right. And if you look at some of the really good offenses in the NFL right now, they're investing in 2 backs. I mean, Detroit has Gibbs and Montgomery. You look at the Eagles, and the Eagles probably lean a little heavy on Saquon, but Gainwell does good things for them.
Right.
There's definitely a lot of offenses where the second back, as long as you get the guy who's okay with that role, can really do well and can be a change of pace back. And between the 2 of them, it's one of those where, if you rush for 2,000 yards between your 2 backs, you don't care if it's 1,505 or 1,200 and 800. That's kind of the offense they're going to be. And then if Rachaad can set himself up, I mean, if that's all he is, he still has a good body of work to go into free agency next year. And I think that's something where, he might be able to go out a year from now and get himself a role where he's more of a number 1 or more of a 1A. But I think the Bucs are happy to let that be a decision for a year from now and go from there.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. You even look at either it's great teams, good teams. Pittsburgh does it with Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, right? There's different. Buffalo's got 3 running backs. They
Right,
that's the way that they were able to deploy their guys. So yeah, it's very exciting. Even I know that's something that the Jets are trying to do this year with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen too. So some really good stuff as always from Greg Auman, Fox Sports. Go check him out. Greg, appreciate your time. Thank you for quelching these franchise tag rumors for Chris Godwin. Good luck on answering those questions because I'm sure it'll happen until he signs the deal.
Just a few times. Thanks, Jake. Good to see you, man.
Thanks, pal. Talk soon. Greg Auman, Fox Sports. There you have it. Chris Godwin not signing a franchise tag. He can't do it, guys. He's not going to do it again. You can't do it a 3rd time. You're going to pay him like a quarterback. What are you, nuts? Come on. So, really, really good stuff, as always, from our guy, Greg Auman. And listen to what he had to say, too, about the pass rush, about some of these other guys where you're talking about Chris Godwin's return, right? You're talking about mean, it's just this team is, if they can have a draft on the defensive side of the ball, and you heard him. He said that the resources there in the draft, they're going to be focused on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's the right move. I've been saying that I want a guy like Myles Garrett. I want a game changer there because I know it'll cost a lot. But we always talk about, all right, well, you can get 2 or 3 guys that does the work of one. Well, I think there's a certain capability of one guy doing the work of 2, 3, or 4. And that is a guy of Myles Garrett. Speaking of a guy that does a lot, he does the work of 4 or 5 guys. That's Erik Erlendsson, LightningInsider.com. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Good. Where are you at the TGH Iceplex right now?
I am. We just finished up talking to Rob Zettler and talking to a couple of guys in the room as first day back on the ice for the team and for the players who are in town, which obviously there's a few guys who are not here, including John Cooper, because they're a little busy.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be kind of weird to go to. I was going to try to make it there today, but obviously I had to be here for this. But that's got to be weird today. Like, you take the ice and it's like, half the team's not here. John Cooper's not here. That's got to be a weird dynamic, no?
Yeah, a little bit. That's why they called up a couple of guys from Syracuse, because obviously they're missing 4 forwards, first of all. So, you're not going to have your line combinations. You're not going to have anything out. But these, it's today, tomorrow. The team will be off on Friday. They'll practice on Saturday and obviously resume on Sunday against Seattle. But, these first couple of days here are just about, getting your legs back under you, some hard skates to kind of get the players back into the kind of routine of everything. So there's not a lot of system work here. There's a lot of, little games, mini games that they do, and some drills and some hard skates, so stuff like that. So, but yeah, there's missing bodies. It's not easy to try and get yourself back into a chemistry situation, if you will.
We saw Nikita Kucherov miss the last game before the break. He was back out there today, correct? How did he look?
Correct.
Any concerns about him not being ready for Sunday's game against the Kraken?
No, I don't think so. Certainly didn't get that impression. He looked so good out there, we didn't even really ask. Dan said he was coming in the background, by the way.
Hey, Dan. Good to see you, pal.
Everybody knows who I am now.
But we didn't even ask about Kucherov. We just assumed that because he was out there and skating that he should be fine. So I don't think there's any concern. And look, he took warm-ups in that last game against Montreal, and he was a surprise scratch. So I would fully anticipate that he'll be ready come Sunday.
So just kind of, have a break, right? Give him some time, right? I mean, there's no situations like that. I think it's just, don't overthink it. Sometimes the Lightning do that, don't they? They're very creative with how they have given their guys rests over there. Has that always been, is that an organizational thing, Erik, or is that something that changed when John Cooper came here? Because it seems like they're very smart with knowing when a day off is coming, or knowing, when can I get a guy 3 days or instead of 1, or 5 days instead of 3, sit a goalie here, front side of a back-to-back kind of thing. Is that something that John Cooper has really established with the Bolts, or was that here before him?
It was here before him, and a lot of it comes from the medical staff. I mean, Tom Mulligan has been here since 2003, right? Mikey Poirier has been with him pretty much the entire time. Mark Lambert has been here since, Steve Yzerman and Julian Breezeball. He came with Guy Boucher when Guy was the head coach here. So a lot of that sort of direction comes from the medical staff and the evaluation and the strength and training and conditioning, with the idea that the coaches certainly understand what's going on. So, yeah, they can be creative in kind of how they look at things. Look at, J.J. Moser, who's obviously been out since December. He was close before the break, right? Like, they even activated him off of injured reserve prior to the Montreal game. We all thought, well, maybe he's going to play, and he didn't even come out for warm-up. So they figured, I think there was some internal debate about whether or not it would be a good idea to get him in a game and then break. And obviously they went the other way, get him the extended break. He actually only took 4 days off during the Four Nations break here. Said he was actually on the ice for a good portion of this to kind of ramp things back up. So I think that's just an organizational thing that's been here, certainly going back to, Guy Boucher days. Certainly they had a lot of this type of stuff going on too.
I mean, I can't wait to see JJ Moser out there. I think all signs point to him being back there on Sunday, correct?
Yes, he will. He didn't say he was going to be back, but Rob Zettler said he's going to be back. So I would fully anticipate getting him back onto the ice. Will be a boost. It's almost going to be like the cliche that you're getting a trade deadline acquisition back, right? Because he's missed so much time, and there's been so much continuity with basically the top 6 guys. A couple of guys have missed games here and there, but it's been these 6 guys that have kind of carried the load since JJ went out. So yeah, they'll integrate him back in, and most likely be paired back again with Victor Hedman, and they'll see where Victor's at when he won't practice tomorrow. He'll be back out here on Saturday after he played for Sweden. So it'll be a big boost to have him back. He was playing very well in his first season here with the team.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him out there. He's got such a great attitude, man. So he's a character. He really is. He's a funny dude, and it killed him not being on the ice for sure. Any other guys there standing out at practice today that we could see on Sunday, or is it kind of tough to tell before everybody gets back?
It's tough to tell. There's no real line combinations or anything. And a guy like Gabe Fortier is here practicing with the team. I don't anticipate he'll be in the lineup on Sunday, but he's out there because they need some guys, and it's good to get a guy like Fortier, who's played a few NHL games here for the Lightning, out there to work with the guys and, kind of get that feel back a little bit. So again, I'm not going to read too much into what happens out here in practice today and what's going to take place tomorrow, just because there's so many players that are not here to take part in it. So, the challenge is going to be there. How do you, as a team, take some of the momentum you built up heading into the break and carry it into the resumption of the season? Because there's 28 games, 27 games left in the regular season. I mean, this is the stretch drive. I mean, everybody got this little break to kind of heal up and reset mentally. And now what can you do to take what you were doing, especially those 2 games against Ottawa, so well, and carry them into the resumption of the season against Seattle on Sunday, and then the schedule that's coming out of it, because it's like training camp. You're going to go from 0 to 125 miles an hour in the blink of an eye, and you have to be ready for it.
How does John Cooper reincorporate Hagel, Cirelli, Point, and Gensel into the lineup on Sunday?
I think it's going to be status quo. I mean, that's the one thing, when players are taking part in this. And at the end of the day, it's only going to be 4 games, right? These guys have only going to play 4. So it's not like they were at the Olympics for 2 weeks and played 10 games or whatever. It's 4 games. It's more emotional, certainly. It's more intense, certainly. I mean, these have been basically playoff games, intensity in the way that they've been played. So it's maybe taken a little bit more out of them. But at the end of the day, I think it's right back to status quo. Okay, Jake, here you're playing with Point and Kucherov. You're on the number 1 power play, all of that. And, they'll probably just get that one practice under their belt and maybe a morning skate on Sunday. But I mean, it's back. I mean, it's like flipping the switch from finishing up that game in Montreal to all those players that are participating, flip that switch to be ready for that. And now it's just got to go back the other way. And you have to be ready. I mean, there's no excuses here. Like, this is what you get paid for. And you have to be ready from the moment the puck drops at 6:08 on Sunday.
All right, buddy. Let's talk some Four Nations here. I was at a party Saturday night up north, and we were just locked in for 60 straight minutes. I mean, the fights obviously got a lot of the press, but I thought it was just a tone setter for the game where it was just such a nip and tuck battle. Charlie McAvoy, who will be out tomorrow night, he doesn't turn quick enough. McDavid scores, and he took the onus upon himself, like, all right, well, I'm going to become a human wrecking ball, and he was just incredible the rest of the way. The U.S. just grinding it out. Just before we get into what tomorrow night could look like, just take me back into your perception on Saturday and just like how many eyeballs were on the product during a night where, the NBA skills competition, there was a lot of things Saturday night, prime time, and it seemed like that was on the tip of everybody's tongue in North America.
Yeah, Hockey Night in Canada, no doubt about it. In Montreal, already a charged atmosphere to begin with, and then you see the way the game started. me, and I said it, and I know I'm in the minority here. I didn't like the fights, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. You can say they weren't staged, but the Kachucks basically said they were going to start something, right? So in their mind, it was a staged situation. I'm not a fan of those. It wasn't an organic situation. I think it was for Hagel, right, to get involved in that. The first one, okay, I understand it. The second one, wasn't crazy about it. I really didn't like the third one. I mean, look, it is a conversation starter for sure. Does it get you charged up in the game? For sure. I think that game was going to have the emotion in it no matter what. I don't think it needed to be dialed up, but it got dialed up, and I think what gets lost in the way that game did start was the way that it was played.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is one of the greatest hockey games literally I've ever watched, because there was so much pride on the line for both teams, and you could see it in their play. I mean, you just mentioned McAvoy gets beat on the goal, and then he said, I'm not going to get beat again. And I think it was his hit on McDavid that kind of really changed the tone of the game and the way that the U.S. was going to approach it. They basically said, I don't care that you're Connor McDavid. We're not going to take it from you anymore. And so I think that kind of flowed into what I felt was, I mean, this is what we've missed with Best on Best. And, we talked about it last week with the improvements that USA Hockey has made over the past 15, 20 years in developing players like the Kachucks, like the Gensels, and, these type of players. They've caught Canada in terms of depth and what they can put onto a national team. They don't have a McDavid, but they have an Eichel. They don't have a McKinnon, but they have a Matthews, right? So they have these type of players that has kind of put this on it. And when you get the best of the best in a competitive environment, I mean, we said it, this was not going to be an all-star situation, right? The players were not going to treat it at that, because you're playing for something. You have that national logo on your chest. And I think that came out specifically, especially in that game, in the way that the U.S. in particular really just slowed down Canada. I mean, it was a masterclass defensively. We mentioned Jacob Slavin last week, and I know McAvoy's getting a lot of credit. Jacob Slavin was incredible in that game. Just the little plays that he made to just take pucks away and take time and space away. That's why I say he's probably the most underrated defenseman in the league and would win the Defensive Defenseman Award every year. And somebody pointed out, well, Ryan McDonough is still in the league. Right. That's how good Jacob Slavin is. And you don't see it as much because of, you don't get the spotlight on those type of players because they're not putting up the offensive numbers. So I just thought the game itself was just so entertaining from a hockey perspective, looking beyond the fights. It was just so much. I don't know if we can replicate that tomorrow night, but we're going to get close, and that will make it for a very fun game and what should be a much different environment in Boston compared to Montreal.
Yeah, I think Zach Werenski is another guy. Just looking at him, he's probably going to win the Norris this year, literally dragging Columbus into the playoff hunt. And he's just another guy, makes a lot of great decisions in tight spaces, just like Jacob Slavin. What from that game on Saturday will each team be able to carry over till Thursday night, or will it be a standalone game?
I think it'll be a standalone game. First of all, no McAvoy for the U.S. Cale Makar will play for Canada. He didn't play in that Saturday's game. Interested to see in this whole drama surrounding Quinn Hughes, that with McAvoy out. And, we saw this when Shea Theodore was injured for Canada and the Thomas Harley situation. And can they get him in, with injuries? So we'll see what develops and transpires over the next 28, 29 hours. Because Quinn Hughes practiced yesterday with Vancouver. Yeah. Basically, he said he wasn't going to go to Boston unless he was going to play. So we'll see if he's on the ice for them again today and how all that develops. But I think it's going to be its own game into itself because, I mean, you've already seen John Cooper change the lines around again, right? He had the all-lightning line in the game against Canada. Well, he put Braden Point with McDavid for the game against Finland. And, Braden Point gets on the board, and so he's feeling different about his game. And like I said, I don't think you can replicate the emotions that started with that game. I think people are going to expect it, but I don't think we should expect it. It's going to be a different type of emotion. As somebody said, this one will be more of a trying to phrase this the right way, true hockey game compared to what the start of the game was the other night, because now there is something on the line. Round robin game, yeah, there was something on the line, and the U.S. clinched a spot to get to Thursday's game, and Canada had to go beat Finland to get to the same situation, to get the rematch that we want. But now they have a feel for each other. Now you've got different line combinations that the U.S. has to worry about. So it'll still be a fascinating game to watch develop, but I think it will be completely different in terms of how things might play out, not necessarily in the results. That will speak for itself, but just in the way that the game is going to be played.
Erik, just watching this tournament and watching how the Team USA was built, and you said it a couple weeks ago or last week, Canada has the better players, Team USA has the better team. And I think when you look at this roster, when you look at the U.S., not a lot of people are talking about how, whether you like their fights or not, the fact that it was 2 top 6 forwards that got into the scraps for the U.S. and 2 bottom 6 forwards, quote unquote, for the Canada team. I feel like the top players for the U.S. play the style of hockey that works when you're trying to win Stanley Cups and when you're trying to win tournaments, right? Because the skill guys, and you're not seeing a ton from Austin Matthews and Jack Hughes, but you're seeing score goals? Jake Ensel, Dylan Larkin, Matthew Boldy. Like, you need to be able to go to these dirty areas to score these dirty goals. It's not going to be a Picasso, right? You're going to have to score deflections and tips. Do the U.S. just have the right team built for a tournament like this? And do you think Canada has enough? And I'm not talking about high-end talent, but do you think they have enough grit to be able to combat Team USA in the way that they're constructed? Because this is going to be a hell of a matchup, and it's almost like a styles makes fights kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it's hard to match what the U.S. can do with Matthew and Brady Tkachuk, right? Like, they're just the perfect epitome of power forwards in the modern game, where they're highly skilled, but they got old school in them, right? There's very few players in the league that are like that. So, the U.S., let's go back to the World Junior, right? And this is where a lot of the debate is actually going to come, because you look at the way that U.S. junior team won the gold this year in particular. They had to grind it out, right? Especially in the gold medal game against Finland, where they were down 2-0, and they just had to keep grinding away. I think the U.S. has a little bit more of that mentality when it comes to winning games, no matter whether it's with the Vegas Golden Knights or whether it's with, USA Hockey. They just have that different type of mentality. And not that the Canadians don't have it. I mean, Sam Bennett is as gritty as they come, right? Brandon Hagel is gritty. I mean, he's a gritty player. He is hard to play against. It's, he's not 6'3", 225 pounds. He's Brandon Hagel, but he still plays that way. And they get guys that will go to those areas. To me, this is just, I don't think this is about team construction. And I just think the U.S. is a deeper team from top to bottom in terms of the talent that they can give. Again, as I mentioned last week, McDavid is going to go down as one of the greatest players to ever play the game. So is Nathan McKinnon. And Jack Eichel is a highly offensive player, but they can use him as a matchup center too. And we've seen that a little bit in this tournament. So I just think it's just 2 really, really good teams with really, really good players. It was a tight, close game, right? Dylan Larkin made the play. And actually, it was a mistake, as most situations are. It was a mistake that led to the game-winning goal, and not from a guy that we're used to seeing it in Sidney Crosby and making a pass that got intercepted as his team was changing. It led to a 2-on-1. So it's when you've got this type of a best-on-best situation with some of the best players who have ever played the game, not just currently in the game, who have ever played the game into a competitive environment such as this. And the first time we've seen anything close to this in 9 years on the grandest stage. It's just going to come down to who blinks first, right? Canada's got players that will go to those areas, and Boldy's obviously the tip in front, and the Tkachuk brothers will go anywhere on the ice. They don't care who you are. They're going to create their own space and opportunities. But Canada's got those type of players too.
Do you think that they start with the Tkachuk brothers and Eichel, or do they split them up and then bring them together? Because I feel like and Matthew said this on the broadcast the other night, I was surprised I wasn't playing with my brother originally. But I feel like there's something to that where you keep them separate. And then when you put them together at some point, it's almost like, oh, snap. Here we go, right? It's almost like, you're getting kind of like the J.J. Moser edition kind of thing. Like, oh, wow, it's just a different ball game. Do you think they start with Eichel, or do you think they separate them and then bring them together?
I mean, they were so effective together. I don't know why you would break them up, right? If your whole goal is to go out and win a championship, if that's what we're going to call this, a trophy. And anytime you're playing for a trophy, we hear this in soccer all the time. Anytime you play for a trophy, there's something on the line and it matters. I think you put your best situation because those three were so effective. And you look at the metrics, the Hughes, Matthews, Gensel line has been highly effective. Right? You haven't seen Matthews get on the scoreboard, but some of the plays that him and Hughes make together, and we know how sneaky good Jake Gensel is as part of that trio, they could easily make an impact. All they need is a little bit of space and one opportunity. I mean, we've seen Austin Matthews, the way that he can score goals from anywhere on the ice as soon as the puck is on his blade. So I think that those will probably be the top two lines heading into tomorrow night, and we'll see how things shake out. I mean, with such great players on both sides, if things aren't working the first couple of shifts, it's not a big factor to kind of change things around because the players are just that good.
Yeah, I think a lot of people going into this tournament forgot how good of a coach Mike Sullivan was, right? For all the talk about John Cooper and Team Canada, like, let's not forget Sully's a champ too, right? And I think he's done a really, really good job. And, there's also the memory and the legacy of Johnny Gaudreau. And there's something different. That's why Brandon Hagel was asked about it today of, they're not in any group chats or anything like that. He's like, yeah, that kind of stuff doesn't really matter. And you could say that, but you hear Matthew Tkachuk on the broadcast the other night in the game against Sweden, and they said, what's your biggest strength? And he talks about the camaraderie with this team, and he talks about the togetherness. And you saw them go out to eat with Mike Modano and Mike Ruzioni before. There is something about this team where if the USA wins, correct me if I'm wrong, but I really feel like their togetherness, not saying Canada wasn't, but there's just something about this group that they're very tight knit. And when you see it on the ice, you go, there it is. There it is right there. You may not be able to compute it or quantify it with a number, but there just seems to be a very togetherness, there's a togetherness aspect when it comes to this team.
Yeah, I think some of that does stem from, as we talked about last week, the development program for USA Hockey and how much not everybody played together when they were younger, but a lot of them did. And, Canada's got it too, but they only come together for national tournaments and stuff like that. And, so they do have experience together, but it's different, I think, with the way that the U.S. has set up everything with a developed program. So there's a little bit of that known commodity when they get together. But I think there is something to, keeping Johnny Gaudreau's memory at the forefront and, honoring him at the forefront of this because he would have been on this team. Right? He'd have been a big part of this team. So I think that certainly brings guys together. I think having Guy Gaudreau, his dad, involved in that dinner that you referenced and coming on the ice during a practice. I mean, obviously John Tortorella did that in Philadelphia and brought him out on the ice for a couple of days. That stuff matters, right? To have such a guy who was an integral part of everything that USA Hockey has done and the number of times that Johnny Gaudreau, wore that crest and, even recently at the World Championships, he meant a lot to USA Hockey. So anything you can do in a setting such as this to bring guys closer together matters. And, having covered John Tortorella during the early parts of his career as a head coach, he used to talk about that kind of stuff a lot. How can you bring a group of guys together to care about each other? Because hockey is so unique in that aspect. And, there are, look, the Boston Red Sox, what was the old phrase, 23 guys, 23 cabs? Mm-hmm. They didn't have to like each other because they didn't really have to play for each other. Right. They had to come together as a team and do certain things. In football, you have X's and O's, but you have an offense and a defense and you're separate. In hockey, everybody has to be on the same page, and anything you can do to bring that to the forefront quicker, a team is going to benefit from. And that's part of it, certainly with, keeping Gaudreau's memory alive, the handing out of the jersey after the game. And I think it's been a great gesture, too, that the guys have turned it around, right, and put Gaudreau's name on the front. It's so meaningful to do it that way, because we hear so many times in hockey, it's not the name on the back, it's what's on front. And I think that they've kind of turned that around for the post-game stuff. We're playing for him too, because he would have been a part of it.
LightningInsider.com. What do we got going on over there, buddy?
Yeah, I don't know. I got a lot to sort through today. Between all the Four Nations stuff and JJ Moser talking to us for 8 minutes about his pending return and everything else. So I got a lot to sort out to find out what I want to get up and posted on the website. But we're back. The team is back. Game resumes on Sunday. Stretch run here for the playoffs. So there's a lot to kind of get back into here after a little bit of time off. And I'm looking forward to it. So, the website is there, lightninginsider.com. You see the code, for $10 off every year. So it's not just the first year like most of the codes I do. This is exclusive to people who tune into your show. $10 off every recurring year, not just year one.
Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. That's Erik_Erlendsson. K, not a C, 2 S's after the D. Check him out on Twitter/X. Again, like he just said, lightninginsider.com. Use that promo code JNZ. $10 off, not just this year, every recurring season. Support local. We talk about that a lot here on the program. Support local, and especially as we get closer and closer to the postseason, you want to be able to hear and read what Erik has to say. Nobody's been covering the team longer. I appreciate you, brother. I'll see you on Sunday at Amalie Arena.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, pal. Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com, right there from the TGH Iceplex there in Brandon after practice today. Good to see Kucherov out there. Good to see a lot of these different players that didn't get a chance to play in the Four Nations on the ice. JJ Moser going to be back in action on Sunday. Wow, that's a positive. Big positive, and I was expecting that. I talked to JJ a couple weeks ago when I was getting ready to do the story on Ryan McDonough, and we were just sitting there kind of shooting the breeze, and he just gave me this look like, I just want to play. I just want to play. I just want to get back out there for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't want to sit on the sidelines anymore. I'm sick of making Instagram videos about my apartment and all the things. I want to get out there and play. And JJ is going to get that opportunity Sunday against the Seattle Kraken. 6 o'clock puck drop, a little different. Lightning.nhl.com for all of the information. But I'm excited for the game tomorrow night. The Four Nations, Team USA against Canada. Once again, no Charlie McAvoy in that game. What is the red, white, and blue going to do to make up for the physical presence that Charlie brought to the game? That's something to certainly be cognizant of. We know up front what Matthew Tkachuk and Brady Tkachuk can do. But on the blue line, when these guys dump the puck in and the defensemen have to go back there and the offensive player beats them to the puck, you got to be aggressive. You got to be physical, and you have to set the tone. So for me, I'm going to keep an eye on that early. And unfortunately, what happens in situations like this, and we'll see this pretty much in every sport, but especially hockey and basketball and soccer, and probably the first three, I guess you see it in football too. When you get in big game situations like this, like that are one-offs, sometimes you have the referee or the official, they call the game a certain way early on to try to set the tone. Instead of just kind of letting the game go and just understanding like, hey, let the guys do their thing. Like you see it when it's an early yellow card in soccer. You're like, come on, man, that wasn't even that hard of a challenge. Or in hockey where it's a play where it's kind of iffy and automatically that guy's penalized, right? It's a big hit or a guy's too scrapping instead of just, hey, spreading them apart. Hey, let's keep it clean. Boom, they call a penalty. And it kind of sucks the air out of the game. I'm just hoping that on Thursday night, we don't see that. Let the guys play. Let it be physical. Let it be emotional. That's probably part of the good thing that came from the 3 fights was the guys were in the penalty box. So it was kind of like an exhale. The guys are able to get that aggression out there. They'll be able to fight, boom, boom, boom. And then you can still have a very physical, aggressive contest, but guys weren't going over the line. They didn't have to get penalized. I hope that there's something similar to that. And I'm not talking about the fights. I'm just talking about just letting the game breathe. If we're talking about the officials on Friday morning about that game, I think we're all going to be robbed. Like, I just don't want that to be a factor. It hasn't been an issue so far. I hope Thursday, tomorrow night, U.S., Canada, 8 p.m., when it's all said and done, it's a clear-cut winner. No controversy. And I know some people will look at, oh, controversy is good. It gets people talking about the product. I don't want there to be any haziness. I don't want there to be any kind of discrepancy whatsoever. I want for sure a winner to be crowned, whether it's U.S. or Canada. Of course, we want the U.S. to win. But I just know that a good hockey game is we're going to be presented with one tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and I'll be tuned in, and I hope everybody out there is to check out my guys, the We the Thunder podcast. They're going to be live at the Dignitary Tea and Kava House, so we'll be jacked up for that. We'll also be jacked up for more soccer this weekend, and let's talk about it right now with Jordan Zade, Tampa Bay Sun defender. Hey, Jordan, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. Did you guys have any training today?
We actually have a night training, so it's not until like 6 or 7. So
okay,
yeah.
Awesome. So how's it been? I mean, you're one of the new members on the team. Like, how's it been here in the Tampa Bay area, rocking out with the Sun?
It's been awesome, and let me just say, I mean, I'm from Kansas, so Tampa has been a great experience. You know, the weather has been awesome. So overall, I'd say it's been great. The girls are awesome. The coaches are great. So yeah.
You're actually the second member of the Sun of the actual team that's been on the program. I've talked to Coach Denise Schulte-Brown and Christina Uncle. Jordan Listro was on a couple of weeks ago. So you're number 2, man. This is great. I mean, you haven't even been on the team all that long, and you're here with us. So thank you so much. And you see, I got the scarf here. I have been a fan since before the team was actually named, when it was just a franchise that just came to be. So I was there at the first game, love supporting everything that's going on with the Sun. What's the biggest thing that you learned about the team? Because every team, and you know this being an athlete, every team has its own identity, the thing that makes them tick. What is it about this Sun team that you've grown to really like in your time here?
I would say just the ability to be like goofy off the field and like have great relationships and be really close with one another, but then also like the moment we step on the field and the intensity raises and like we're able just to kind of snap into it almost. And I just really enjoy that aspect of it, because like some teams it may be different, and I just like how we can all be goofy on the side and have a good time, but when we need to be serious, like we're able to raise the intensity so that we're able to have a good practice or game. So
did you know any of the players before you joined the team?
No.
Wow. So take us through that. Because I think that's one thing. I was just talking hockey with my good buddy Erik Erlendsson, and a couple of years ago, the Lightning acquired a player, Brandon Hagel, who's now one of the better players in the league, from Chicago. And Jordan, the first day we interviewed him, he walked into the dressing room and he was just like, his eyes were this big. He didn't, and we were asking him all these questions. He just kind of looked. He goes, "Guys, I don't even know where to get groceries." And I'm just like, it really hit me. And we think about a player and, oh, you get a new team. Like, this is part of your life, right? So like, take us through that communication of you finding out that you were going to the Tampa Bay Sun, and like how that whole process goes to you ending up right now on your living room couch.
Yeah. Well, I would say like once I signed here, I realized I was going to have a roommate. And so, when I met Dory, or Victoria Haugen, but we call her Dory, me and her clicked instantly. So like, I think that really helped, being able to have a close friend right away. And so I would just say like the team itself, one thing I really appreciate is how welcoming they are, especially like to newcomers, like, bringing you kind of under their wing. And like, so many of the girls were like, "Oh, you should go to this coffee shop. You should go here," like giving me like all the hot spots, like where to go. And so I feel like that made it so easy to transition and like to feel like welcomed here and kind of make this like my home. And so I feel like overall it's been really good. And again, like having a roommate that you get along with, and that like helped a lot. So, and
also I'm sure it helps when you look out the window and
there's palm trees
and you don't see snow, right? Like, how crazy is that to be able to adjust? I was just in New York this past weekend with my family, and all day Saturday it snowed for like 12 straight hours. And then Sunday, right before I got on the plane, they go, "I don't care what happens. I'm going to the beach tomorrow. I don't care if it's 70 degrees. I'm just going to go." And it was like 80 yesterday, 85 or whatever. Like, what has that been like to be able to like live here in Tampa?
Oh, it's been actually insane. Like, again, like you said, the weather, 80 degrees. Like, I called my mom the other day and she was like, yeah, Jordan, it's like in the negatives. And I'm like, wow, that is crazy. And so I feel like also, too, there's so much to do here.
Right.
Like, going down to the wharf and, like, you know, getting at the Hamptons Chocolate Factory. Like, then you can go to the beach, the dog beach. Like, there's just so much, like, there's so many fun activities to do here. I feel like I'm never going to be bored living in Tampa.
So. Nebraska Cornhusker as well. So,
yes.
I mean, what was that like being a member? And, you know, just as a very historic school and to be able to right there in the heart of the country, what was it like to be able to go there and represent such a great academic and athletic university?
Yeah, that was my dream school. So when I was going through the recruiting process, like at the young age, my dad was a Husker fan, like diehard. And so I kind of was pushed to go to the camps, and I fell in love with the facilities, you know, the way they played, the coaching staff was amazing. And so when I got the opportunity to sign with them, it was a no-brainer. And I think there's nothing I regret about going to, like, everything was awesome. Like, it was just a great experience and I loved it. So
that's so great that you were able to kind of live out your dream. And what you see that now, right? I mean, my girlfriend, we took her 2 daughters to the inaugural game for you guys, and just to see how many little girls are out there. We're seeing it now here locally with USF and the lacrosse program. How much does that mean to you, knowing that there are these young ladies, these little girls here in the Tampa Bay area that are looking up to you and knowing that there is a possibility for me to be able to play professionally at the next level?
It means a lot, because I go back to when I was younger and, like, when I was watching all these older girls play soccer, and I'm like, wow, this is like my dream to play professionally. And, like, being able to show them that there's so many more opportunities now, and being able to show them that it is possible, and being able to just have a dream and stick with it, and that it is a possibility. So I feel like it is such a meaningful thing to be a part of that, and being able to show those younger girls that, like, they can do it, their dreams, they can make true what their dreams are. So
yeah. Who are some of your idols and people that you looked up to growing up on the field?
Yeah, so I was a forward, kind of like going into college.
Okay.
So I was an outside mid. So I would say growing up, I would say like Alex Morgan, you know, like watching her play and just being inspired by how she inspired all the younger girls, you know. But I would say as I transitioned into a fullback and like into defender, I would say I started to watch like Emily Fox from the U.S. team, and just watching her play as a fullback, I feel like that's kind of who I started to watch more.
Yeah, I mean, the transition, what was that like, being able to kind of slide back further back on the pitch there? And, you know, your role changes. I mean, you definitely want to be aggressive, and your focus probably more on the crosses when you get in there, trying to stay wide. So what's that transition like been for you?
So when are you talking about when I was a forward going to fullback?
Yeah.
I would say, honestly, at first I, of course, was like nervous. I was like, oh no, like I've never really defended much in my life because I was always a forward. But, and then I would say it was pretty smooth. Once I got used to it and kind of just learned the tactical side of it, I honestly fell in love with fullback. And that is a position that, like, again, like I've grown to love. And I think just focusing more on like you said, like picking my moments to go forward, and also like being able to sit back and learn how to defend and like learn the technique behind it was really fun, and I've enjoyed it. So,
and another thing that I'm sure you've enjoyed, because we have all enjoyed it, is the viral moments that you give everybody because of the way that you throw in the ball. I have it right here. I'm going to play it real quick, because if those of you don't know Jordan Zade, she is on an absolute another level. She's on another level. Just check this out. I watching these, and I remember the first time I saw it, I go, what is this? Here we go. Jordan Zade on the sideline. Oh, she's going to throw it in. Going to be normal. Not. What?
Acrobatic launch into the 18.
I don't even know where to start with that. Here, we'll watch it again. Jordan, I again, with the rest of the year. What made you think? I mean, I've seen this before. Okay, I'm not taking anything away, but what? I just like, what inspired you to be like, this is how I'm going to do throw-ins now? And did you get any backlash from people going like, oh, she's trying to show off? There's other ways that you can do it. Like, how did you prove it to be effective enough where that's the way you're going to do throw-ins?
So it started because I was a competitive gymnast for 7 or 8 years. And so I kind of I learned how to do all the flips and stuff. And so going into high school, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it. I'm going to do the flip throw, see what happens. And I used to do it to where I would leave the ball on the ground and I would grab it as I went. And I realized that technique just did not work. But college was when it really stuck. And I started just to like do it like 5 or 6 times, like every game. And I would say, yeah, that came with a lot of backlash because people would be like, oh, like her feet aren't on the ground when she threw it. And so like some people had their thoughts on it, of course, thinking that it's too much or whatever. But I feel like it became effective when I was able to start to get it farther to where it kind of replicated a corner kick in some way. And so I feel like that's when it actually was useful. Like my college team, we would use it all the time because it's like if we're down in our final third and we can get basically a corner kick out of a throw in, like we're going to use it. And so I feel like that's when it started to become like more effective, is when I was able to get it farther than when I was younger.
What's been your favorite one?
I would say it was when we played Eastern Washington in college. Was my junior year. So I flipped it in, and then my center forward did a bicycle kick and scored.
Whoa.
It was actually crazy.
That is a SportsCenter top 10 play if I've ever heard it my entire life.
Yeah, it was yeah.
So do you get tired of talking about it? Like, has this become like your thing? Like Jordan Zade, she's the soccer player. Yeah, she's a pretty good defender, but wait till you see how she throws the ball in. Does it get tired talking about it?
I mean, not really. I enjoy doing it, and I feel like it's like a fun, I get to incorporate gymnastics and soccer into one thing. So I feel like I enjoy it. So I'd say I'm okay to talk about it.
I love that. What about your feet? Because I noticed, like, do your feet have to stay on the, like, outside of the touch line there? Like, can they go over? Like, where have you found maybe that there was some people saying, hey, you got to keep it this way to keep it legal?
I think the argument is sometimes it's, so if my feet are on the ground when I release it, that's like the argument. So it's like some people like believe since my feet aren't technically on the ground when I am releasing it, that it's not a legal throw. But I've been doing it for so long and no ref has said anything to me. So, and I'm pretty sure my feet are on the ground when I do release it, but that's mainly the argument, I would say.
Have you tested it out? Like, just normally doing it and then doing the flip throw and seeing the discrepancy between how far the ball goes?
Oh yeah, I can throw it pretty standard, I would say normally. Like I can't really throw it super far. So I would say it's a pretty big difference from when I just throw it normally.
How far do you think you throw it? Have you ever measured it?
No. But usually if I'm near the corner and if I throw it in, it's probably like near the goalkeeper.
Wow.
So I would say that's probably like where I try to get it at least.
Halfway across the pitch. Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's pretty wild. And I'm sure when everybody sees that it's a possibility for you to get it near the goal, the lineup is completely different. They're lining up like a corner, right? They're kind of all surrounding the 18-yard box there. And instead of like a normal throw where it's like, all right, you have people close to you, you have people moving side to side, like trying to juke somebody to get open. Wow. You're changing the game. I mean, how did you get, like, I know that you said, have you seen that? Where did you see that where it inspired you to do that? I've seen it just like here and there, but nothing with the type of consistency where you put it with somebody's name like we see here. So where did you get the idea for the flip throw?
I'm going to be so honest. I'm not sure. I think one day I just was like, I can do flips. And I was like, maybe I'll try to like see if I can do it with the ball. And then one day it just like stuck. And like I did do it a few times in high school. And then again, like I said, college was when it really stuck. So
did any coaches give you any grief about it? Like, we're not going to do that here.
There's been a few times where, so if it's like a wet, like the pitch is wet, I need a towel. So yeah, so I remember one game in particular, we were at a Big Ten like semifinal, or I believe so. And I had a towel. My coach threw it to me to wipe off the ball, and the other coach took it and said, if she gets a towel, we all get a towel. And so I ended up just having to throw it in normally, which is fine. But yeah.
Jordan, before I let you go, I was doing my research like I always do, and I saw that you did a mission trip down to Mexico a couple, at the end of 2023. Just talk about the impact that had on you, and just like what are some of your interests off the field?
That mission trip really like transformed my life and the way I view it, in the sense of I became Catholic after that mission trip, and just being able to hang out with all the little kids and just being able just to bring them joy through, we got to play soccer together and doing something that I love and that they love, and having a shared like common love. And so being able just to, you know, mess around, it was really awesome. And I would definitely go on another mission trip if I could. And I would say, other than that, I enjoy going on coffee runs. I love to lift. I feel like those are fun activities. Nice. I feel like I like to do. Yeah.
I love that. Tampa Bay Sun FC.com for all the information about the team and everything that they've got going on right now. And the big game Saturday against Brooklyn FC, celebrating Black History, 7 p.m. at the Riverfront Stadium. And I know there's a matchup with Fort Lauderdale United coming up. How cool is that to be able to see kind of some crossover there with, you know, the leagues here? Because man, women's soccer is really kind of taking that next step and just really making forays into lands that they've never been before.
I think it's so awesome. And I think it's such a cool experience to see how many opportunities are opening up for women in soccer, and just seeing how the game is growing. So I'm just really excited, and I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, cannot wait for that. Again, we will continue to promote everything that you gals have going on. Tampa Bay Sun FC.com matchup against Brooklyn FC, 7 p.m. on Saturday night, Riverfront Stadium. Tampa Bay Sun FC.com. Go get your tickets right now. Jordan, this has been a lot of fun. I am so happy to finally get a chance to talk to you the first time. And it's funny because I saw that video of you doing the throwing before I ever knew that you were going to come on the show. And then when Grayson reached out to me, I was like, 1000%. I can't wait to chat with her and just to get to know you a little bit more. You're crushing it. Thank you so much. Continue to be a leader in our community, and enjoy Tampa. It's going to get a little hot in the summer. Just a little heads up. But
yes, I'm ready.
The support for Team Tampa Bay never stops. So appreciate it. Have a great practice tonight. Stay healthy, and good luck this weekend and the rest of the season.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. Take care. Good stuff, Jordan Zade. Go watch those videos of her with the incredible flip throws. It just doesn't get any better than that. All right. I'm going to get out of here a little bit early because we have the Beckles and Recher podcast at 3:15 today. So set your alarms. This is why you want to subscribe to the J Recher podcast. Hit that notifications bell. Subscribe. We need you here. A big thank you to everybody that joined us on the program, including Jordan Zade, Erik Erlendsson, Greg Auman, Greg Wolf, and you. You guys are the best. Tomorrow on the program, we know we got Easy E, another Eddie and Cena. We're going to talk all things hockey for tomorrow, man. 4 nations face off the championship game tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. We cannot wait. At J Recher on all social media platforms. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Again, 3:15 today. It'll be Beckles and Recher. You don't want to miss that. I love you all. Thank you so much for the love and support. We'll see you tomorrow at noon right here on the J Recher podcast. I am gone.